I was 22 when I signed up with the American Field Service in early 1918. Too young for the draft, but old enough to feel like I needed to do something. My father ran a hardware store in Philadelphia, and I'd been helping him since I finished school. Safe, comfortable, boring, if I'm being honest. The recruitment posters made it sound noble. Save lives, not take them. That appealed to me. I wasn't a fighter, never had been, but I could drive. I'd been driving my father's Model T since I was 16, and I was good at it. The ambulance corps seemed like the right choice. Help the wounded boys, bring them back from the front, clean work, honorable work. They didn't tell you what the boys would look like when you found them. We trained for 6 weeks in New York before they shipped us over. They taught us basic maintenance, how to navigate by compass, how to dress wounds in a pinch. They gave us gas masks and told us not to panic if we saw the yellow clouds. They made it sound manageable, professional. I remember the crossing on the transport ship. We were excited, most of us. Playing cards, talking about Paris, about French girls, about being part of history. Jimmy Horvath from Chicago said he'd heard the war would be over by Christmas. We all believed him because we wanted to. They assigned me to a Ford ambulance with Evacuation Unit 23 attached to the 2nd Division near Chateau Thierry. My first day, they showed me my vehicle. Old, battered, the canvas top patched in 3 places. The inside smelled like copper and disinfectant, but underneath that, something else. Something I couldn't name yet. She'll get you there and back, the mechanic told me, most of the time. I didn't understand what he meant by most of the time. Not then. I would learn soon enough. My first run was June 3rd, 1918. The Germans had pushed to within 50 miles of Paris, and our boys were dug in along the Marne, trying to hold them back. The shelling started before dawn, a rolling thunder that made the ground shake even miles behind the lines. The call came through on the field telephone around 6 in the morning. Casualties at an aid station 2 miles up. I grabbed my helmet, cranked the engine, and drove toward the sound of the guns. The roads were chaos. Troops moving up, refugees moving back, supply wagons stuck in the mud. I learned quickly that an ambulance doesn't have right of way when nobody wants to die. You force your way through or you don't get through at all. The aid station was in a half-collapsed farmhouse. I could see it from a quarter mile away. The Red Cross painted on white canvas, flapping in the smoke-filled wind. Shells were landing maybe 300 yards north, close enough to feel the pressure in your chest when they hit. I backed up to the entrance like they'd taught me. Keep the engine running. Always keep the engine running. The doctor came out first. Captain Morrison, though I didn't know his name yet. His apron was red from the waist down. He looked at me with these exhausted eyes and said, "How many can you take?" 4 stretcher cases or 8 sitting, I said, reciting what they'd told me in training. He laughed. Not a happy sound. "Take 6 stretchers. Pack them in." The first boy they carried out couldn't have been more than 19. Shrapnel had torn through his abdomen, and they'd wrapped him up as best they could, but the bandages were already soaked through. He was conscious. That was worse. His eyes found mine, and he tried to say something, but only blood came out. "Drive smooth," Morrison said, "and drive fast. Those 2 things don't go together, but figure it out." They loaded 5 more. A kid with his leg gone below the knee. Another with his face wrapped in so much gauze I couldn't see if he had eyes anymore. A sergeant with chest wounds who kept coughing up pink foam. 2 others I didn't look at too closely. I drove. The road back was worse than the road up. Every pothole, every rut, every bump. I could hear them screaming behind me. The one with the abdominal wound, he stopped screaming after about a mile. That's when I learned what silence means in an ambulance. By mid-June, I was making 4, sometimes 5 runs a day. The fighting at Belleau Wood turned the whole sector into a meat grinder. The Marines were going into those woods and coming out in pieces. You develop a routine. You have to. Check the oil, check the tires, check the stretcher straps. Clean out the back between runs, though you can't ever really get it clean. The blood soaks into the wood. The smell becomes part of the vehicle, part of you. I learned to recognize the different kinds of wounded, the ones who would make it and the ones who wouldn't. Gas cases, their lungs were already drowning them, coughing up pieces of themselves with every breath. You'd watch the panic in their eyes as they realized they couldn't breathe, couldn't stop coughing, couldn't do anything but suffocate slowly. Some of them would grab at you, begging with their eyes for something you couldn't give them. The boys with belly wounds, they knew too. I remember Private Danny Walsh from Boston. Took a machine gun round through his stomach. He was lucid, polite even. Asked me about Philadelphia, about the Phillies, about anything except what we both knew was happening. He died before we got halfway back. Just stopped talking mid-sentence. The mud was the worst part of driving. After the rains came in July, the roads turned into rivers of filth. I got stuck 3 times in one day. Had to unload the wounded onto the side of the road, the ones who could understand what was happening, lying there in the rain, watching me dig out the wheels, wondering if they'd die before I got them moving again. One night, a shell hit close enough to flip my ambulance onto its side. I had 4 men in the back. 4. I can still hear the sound it made, the crunch of metal, the screaming that turned into something that wasn't quite human anymore. It took 2 hours to get help, to pull them out. 2 of them died pinned under the stretchers. The other 2, I don't know. I never saw them again. They gave me a new ambulance, a newer one at least. Told me to get back out there. The Germans used gas shells regularly now, mustard gas mostly. Those boys, Jesus Christ, those boys. Their skin would blister and peel. They'd be blind, choking, skin burned from the inside out. We'd pack them in, and they'd whimper like children the whole way back. Some of them would beg you to end it. Just end it, please. Make it stop. You can't think about it. Can't let yourself feel it. You just drive. Eyes forward, hands on the wheel, drive. But at night, when you try to sleep in your tent, you can still smell them, still hear them. The canvas walls don't keep anything out. The screaming follows you everywhere. I wrote letters home those first few months. Told my parents I was fine, that the work was hard but important. Told them about Paris, about the French countryside, about anything except the truth. By August, I stopped writing. What was there to say? The summer of 1918 blurred together into an endless cycle. Pick up the broken bodies, drive them back, clean out the ambulance, do it again. We lost drivers. Not many people think about that. Everyone thinks about the infantry, the pilots, the artillery crews. But we were out there too, driving toward the shelling while everyone else was trying to get away from it. Freddie Patterson from Ohio took a direct hit on the road to Soissons. They found pieces of his ambulance scattered over 50 yards. No bodies, just pieces. Tom Riley made it 6 months before his nerves gave out completely. Started shaking so bad he couldn't hold the wheel steady. They shipped him to a hospital in the rear. I heard later he'd walked into the woods one day and didn't come back. You learned to navigate by memory and instinct. Road signs were gone, blown away, or used for firewood. Landmarks disappeared daily. That barn you used as a turning point would be rubble by your next run. You learned to read the sound of the shells, figure out where they were landing, plot a route that might keep you alive for another hour. The wounded changed too, or maybe I just started seeing them differently. They stopped being individuals with names and stories. They became cargo. Stretcher case number 1, stretcher case number 2. You had to think of them that way. If you let yourself see them as people, as someone's son or brother or husband, you'd go mad. I remember one boy, couldn't have been more than 18, asking me if he'd still be able to play baseball when he healed up. Both his arms were gone at the elbows. I told him yes. What else could I say? The lying became automatic. You'll be fine. We're almost there. The doctors will fix you up. Sometimes they'd believe you. Sometimes they'd just look at you with these knowing eyes, and you'd both understand the lie, but pretend you didn't. By September, the Allies were pushing forward. Offensive operations, they called it. We were winning, supposedly. You couldn't tell from where I sat. The wounded kept coming in the same numbers. The screaming sounded the same whether we were advancing or retreating. Winning, losing, it all looked like blood to me. October 8th, 1918. I remember the date because it was the day I stopped being able to pretend I was okay. The Meuse-Argonne offensive was in full swing. The casualties were staggering. We were running ambulances non-stop, sometimes going 18, 20 hours straight. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a time in 3 days. I got called to an aid station that had taken a direct hit. Half the building was gone, and they were treating men in the rubble. The doctor was working on a table that was just planks laid across ammunition crates. They loaded 6 stretchers into my ambulance. The last one was a kid named Peter something. I never caught his last name. He had a sucking chest wound, and every breath was a wet, bubbling sound. He kept looking at me with these terrified eyes. "Am I gonna die?" he asked me. I'd been asked that question 100 times, always had an answer ready. Some variation of "you'll be fine" or "the doctors will take care of you." This time, I couldn't make the words come out. I just looked at him, this scared kid dying in the back of my ambulance, asking me the one question that mattered. And I had nothing, no comfort, no lies, nothing. "I don't know," I finally said. He died somewhere on the road back. I felt the exact moment because the wet breathing sound stopped, and there was just the engine and the shells and the empty space where his life had been. I delivered the other 5 to the field hospital, filled out the paperwork, drove back to the motor pool. Then I sat in my ambulance for an hour, staring at nothing. Couldn't move, couldn't think. Just sat there while the world kept ending around me. Jimmy Horvath found me eventually, asked if I was all right. I told him I was fine. Another lie. They came so easy now. But I wasn't fine. Something had broken inside me, some mechanism that had been keeping me functional. I kept driving because that's what you do. But I wasn't fine. I haven't been fine since. The war ended November 11th, 1918. I was making a run when the guns finally stopped. The silence was deafening, unnatural. I'd gotten so used to the constant rumble of artillery that peace sounded wrong. They threw parties. People celebrated in the streets. The boys who could still walk danced and sang and got drunk. I sat in my tent and listened to them, and I felt nothing. No relief, no joy, just this vast, empty numbness. I shipped home in January 1919. My parents met me at the station in Philadelphia. My mother cried. My father shook my hand and told me he was proud. They wanted to hear stories. Everyone did. They wanted adventure and glory and meaning. I told them it was fine, that I'd helped people, that I'd done my part. The real stories stayed locked in my throat. I tried going back to work at the hardware store. Lasted 3 months. Couldn't handle it. The customers complaining about trivial things, the quiet normalcy of it all. I'd be ringing up a sale, and suddenly I'd smell copper and disinfectant, and I'd have to excuse myself to vomit in the alley behind the store. The sounds are what got me. A car backfiring would send me diving for cover. Fireworks on the 4th of July. I locked myself in my room and put pillows over my head, but I could still hear them. Still hear the shells. Still hear the screaming. I dream about them every night. The wounded boys, the ones I saved and the ones I didn't. Peter with his chest wound, asking me if he was going to die. Danny Walsh talking about baseball as his life leaked out onto my ambulance floor. The gas cases, blind and blistering, begging for mercy I couldn't give. People thank me for my service. Tell me I'm a hero. I'm not a hero. Heroes are the ones who stayed over there, buried in French soil. I'm just a man who drove an ambulance and watched boys die and couldn't do anything to stop it. Sometimes I think about Tom Riley walking into those woods. I understand why he did it. There's a part of me that never left France. It's still driving those roads, still hearing those sounds, still smelling that smell that never washes out. My father says I should move on, that the war's over. He doesn't understand. The war isn't over. Not for me. Not for any of us who saw what I saw, did what I did. They told us we'd be saving lives, and maybe we did. Maybe some of those boys made it because I got them back fast enough. But I also watched hundreds die in my ambulance, watched them bleed out and suffocate and beg for their mothers while I drove over rutted roads trying to keep them alive just a few minutes longer. I'm 30 years old now. I feel ancient. The boy who signed up to drive an ambulance because it seemed like clean work, honorable work, he died somewhere on the roads between Chateau Thierry and Belleau Wood. He's buried over there with all the others. What came back was something else, something broken. We saved lives, they said. Maybe we did, but nobody saved ours.